Hi, welcome to Tech, Marry, and Kill, the show where we look at the biggest stories in tech and ask ourselves, is this thing really worth keeping, worth building a life with, or should we just put it out of its misery? I am Jaff, and I have spent years inside the startup and VC world as a coder, raised money, advised companies, and I drank the Kool-Aid. And then slowly, painfully, I started asking some harder questions about what that world actually does to people. And now I talk about it out loud.
And I am Jessica Burbank. I am someone who grew up in a regular working class family in America and learned about the economic system in our country and the world and found out that it's not quite the story that I was told in our regular public schools or on the news or in the media. And now I spend my time doing economic analysis and sort of translating the story told by the 1% for everyone else.
Every week, we pick one tech story that's actually worth your time, something with real stakes, and we dig into who benefits, who doesn't, and why it's happening now. We'll also kick things off with a quick lap around the week's headlines. It's a transatlantic conversation. I'm here in Germany, and Jessica is in the US. It's going to be a little nerdy, so bear with us. We are not here to be neutral. Let's dive right in. Jessica, I have 3 stories with me today. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right, let's start with a story that dropped last week. And honestly, I feel like it's kind of a perfect opening for this show because it has everything. So there's this guy, Jan LeCun. For people who don't know the name, this guy is basically AI royalty. He won the Turing Award. That's the Nobel Prize for computer science. And he spent over a decade at Meta as their chief AI scientist. He helped build a huge research lab. Last November, he left Meta. 3 months ago, he launched a new startup called AMI Labs. AMI standing for Advanced Machine Intelligence. Well, that's a very humble name. The company is not yet 3 months old, and it just raised over $1 billion at a valuation of $3.5 billion. That's before even shipping a single product. 12 employees, 2 months old, $3.5 billion valuation. Well, what is AMI actually building before we get into how crazy this is? This is where it gets interesting. LeCun has been publicly and loudly skeptical of where AI is heading. His whole thesis is this: large language models are dead. ChatGPTs, the Claudes of the world, they are fundamentally limited. They don't plan ahead, and because they were trained on digital text, they have no real way to understand how the world actually works. So AMI, now his new company, is building what he calls world models, AI that learns from physical reality, not just from language. His systems, so he says, he wants them to be able to actually understand cause and effect. So the goal eventually is that robots or healthcare AI, hardware design, things that require you to actually understand the world, that would be like his type of new product. I'm being this vague because he hasn't actually put out anything yet. And also his CEO, Alexandre Leboon, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this name, but he said, my prediction is that world models will be the next buzzword. That's what he told TechCrunch. He said, in 6 months, every company will call itself a world model to raise funding. I feel like we have to take a look at the backers too, because the biggest names have backed this guy: Jeff Bezos, Eric Schmidt, Mark Cuban, Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who invented the internet, and NVIDIA, Samsung. It's Europe's largest seed round ever. And the company's headquartered in Paris. He basically said Silicon Valley is too hypnotized by the current generative AI hype to think clearly. What do you think about this, Jess?
I'm very concerned. I think artificial neural networks are cool. I appreciate them. Should they be used to explain the world or do world analysis? What's missing from a human perspective when an AI is doing that work for us. It's like intellectual labor, right? I mean, that's how it feels to me. So I think that there's a degree of morality that's missing when you're doing world analysis. We've seen that become a problem with large language models already. We we don't even know what they're doing different. So what have these private investors heard or seen that makes them think this is worthwhile and lucrative? To me, as someone who studies global power, I feel like they're trying to replace some of the work of, university professors and people who study the humanities with this. Is that am I totally misunderstanding what world models are?
No, I believe you're asking the right questions because some of these tech bros have been saying that we need to look at humanities now, and like humanities are the next thing they're hyping. I'm not sure if you've run across this quote like taste is the new core skill, just to make
Ah,
people feel a little bit better about, you know, them not needing to learn how to code anymore because AI does that for them. And I believe this company might be coming for those people too,
yeah.
for anything related to taste or humanities, philosophy. But I also feel like it's crazy that he was able to just like have this enormous funding round with no product in sight. Like that's what I have been told. Like time and time again when I was trying to raise for for ideas that I had, this actually seems to be something that I mean he says it himself that probably needs years and years of researching before anything ever comes out of it. So that looks like another bet to me on where AI is heading. But yeah, you've heard it here first. World models might be the new buzzword. Now you know.
Something I start to wonder when I think about who's investing in this is it even an investment? Or is it the fact that they just want this built? Like they don't really see a capital return. The return is they want access to this model and they want to be the ones to have influence over shaping what it does and what its limitations are and what its priorities are. I always wonder if like these people have so much capital that they're not afraid to just burn some if it means building something that they have influence over. And so I see investments differently today when people have enough money to not expect a return on their investment in terms of dollars.
Yeah, I don't feel like most of these AI companies are here to make money in the first place. I mean, OpenAI is what is losing 3 times as much as they're earning currently. So this is like a
Mhm.
massive bet
Yeah.
on basically like who gets to be the biggest monopoly later on, who gets to eat them all, and then you are part of the new structure, so to speak. Yeah, and I think I feel like this is Europe's answer to big tech in a way, even though they are all invested. They I feel like they're gonna try to spin it in a way that is um n- that is more sympathetic to us Europeans. They're gonna be like, oh yeah, it's a good thing that it's based in Paris because we actually care about data privacy or we actually care about making things the right way. I feel like that's going to be a big part of their PR. Yeah, hopefully they're going to talk a bit more transparently about like their first product or what they are researching. And hopefully it's not just all based on copyrighted knowledge.
This is good. We will keep our eyes on AMI now. Thanks
Yeah,
for putting this on our radar, Aya.
sure. Are you ready for the second news?
I'm ready.
This one is a bit darker. I mean,
No.
I'm sorry, but most of you have probably seen Meta's smart glasses by now. Well, there have been a huge news story around them. Meta has been pushing them hard. They're framed as this lifestyle product, hands-free assistant, a little piece of, they say, future you can wear on your face. The recent investigation by the Swedish newspaper Svenska Dagbladet pulled back the curtain, and it looks pretty grim because to make these glasses AI work, to recognize objects, faces, environments. Meta relies on data workers, mostly in Kenya, who are paid to label and annotate video footage captured by these glasses. And you probably guessed it, they're not being paid a lot. And also, what came out is that that footage includes private moments, really, really intimate moments. People in their homes, people undressed, people having sex. Workers reported being showed like really explicit content, nudity, private scenes, some people at the toilet, with little to no warning. And also, they had no psychological support. So I'm like, is that surprising, really? Or I don't know. I feel like people have also gotten used to these types of news. Data workers being not being paid enough, not being supported enough. And I'll have to be honest with you. I mean, I own a pair of those glasses, and they were a gift. I did not buy them myself, but when I first got them, I did not look at them as this, the way it sounds now. It's like a wearable surveillance device, basically. But I did look at them as like, oh, that's so cool. I now get to, I don't know, film myself cooking like hands free, and I can put it online. I can stream. I can call my mom, and I can just, I don't know, walk around. People would not suspect me having a phone call because I would not need earphones, for example. I feel like those products, they kind of have a worse and worse rap. I don't know. Have you tried them on, the glasses?
Never. I
Never.
watched a video of like a vlogger on the beach. She went out to a shop, she got herself a sandwich, then she went out onto the beach and had a little picnic, and the woman in the cafe that sold her the sandwich was being recorded by the glasses, and she said, "Oh, by the way, like, is it okay if I record this for my vlog on social media?" And the lady's like, "Oh yeah, of course, okay."
Mm.
But then I think about, okay, what if a creepy guy has these glasses on at the beach? It's
Yeah.
a different situation to be on the beach and go like this and take a video of someone. It's entirely
Mhm.
different to just seem like you're a person walking wearing sunglasses and be collecting footage of people. In America, recently, we've had these people that call themselves free speech auditors that will go to a place like the beach and film just to test if they'll get in trouble. And they'll say, it's my free speech right to be here and to record. And so I think we're going to see these glasses inspire some legislation of camera-free beaches, no glasses allowed on the beach, because I think it's a totally different thing to be staring at someone who's, like, not really clothed. It's just undetectable. It feels like an intrusion and, like, against our norms. It prevents people from enjoying being in
Yeah.
public now. And so it just there's something about it that skeeves me out. I saw someone developed an app that uses Bluetooth to alert if there's someone using the glasses nearby. That's
Mhm.
really interesting to me.
I
But
saw
just the
that one
fact that
too, yeah.
yeah, the fact that there's persistent surveillance and human beings processing the footage coming in and tagging it for AI, that's a different level of intrusion, right? It's not intrusion by the user, it's intrusion by the company. And, like, these people having no psychological support for watching someone's lives, it's like The Truman Show. Do you know that movie?
Yeah.
We reference it a lot in America, but it feels like that a little bit.
It does feel like that. Some people are like, I have those glasses on, right? And whenever I took a video of someone, I let them know. But because this was like a huge deal back in the day, I had them like a couple years ago, and a little light would always come on and, tell people that I'm about to like film them, and it would only film for about a minute. But now I see so many TikTok videos of like creepy guys going up to women and filming them, and like they're keeping this light hidden, or they have hacked their way through, I don't know, so many things. People can actually identify faces and names just by walking past you and having these glasses on. And that's actually pretty easy to do. I watched a video where it was like, yeah, we already have all the info. This is so easy to be manipulated. Now I feel like I can't wear these glasses anymore. Duh. And I'm also like, I'm kind of worried that people might look at me as this creep, even if I don't, like, even if they don't have any battery on, for example. I'm like, would that Bluetooth device still detect these glasses? Or should I just throw them out? Is this like, would this count as moral failing on my part if I still have these on? Like, these are some of the questions that I have. I don't want to throw them out. They're really like they're Ray-Ban. Come on. They're
Right.
designers. But yeah, but this whole tech behind it, I don't want to use it at all. Like um I do understand
It didn't
if
have to
people
be
want to
like that.
boycott.
It could have just been like, here's a convenient way to film your POV videos, and the footage is all local. It's not going to a cloud. It's not being
Yeah.
analyzed by anyone else. It's not collecting images unless you explicitly hit the record button, right? It could have been a useful piece of technology, but I think because of the greed of wanting all of the data and information and using it to train AI models, it's kind of poisoned, like, almost all of our new inventions.
Thank you.
But it feels like a women's issue, right? Because they have all these ways to sort of circumvent our bodily autonomy, like Grok was removing women's clothes and putting them in a bikini, and no, that's not nude, it's not as regulated, but it's also like, you didn't post a photo of you like that. Um, and then similarly in public, sure, you can see someone on the beach in a bikini, but you can't pleasure yourself while you're looking at someone on the beach. That's against the law. But if you record it, then you can use it in that way. And so it feels like it's a way to circumvent bodily autonomy. That's what the tech gives people the power to do. And I think that's the creepy part about it to me.
Exactly. This whole like these headlines that came out saying like Grok is undressing women. I'm like, men are undressing women. Like
Mhm.
you need to talk about it in that way. It's always men and they're using this tech to get to pictures without consent, or videos or whatever they want to do with it. Really, it's sad. But yeah, let's move on to the next story because this one's a bit funny, maybe. I don't know if it's going to make you laugh, but it made me laugh.
We need that.
So this time we are in Switzerland and it's about the US Chamber of Commerce. So here's what happened. The Swiss Federal, how do you say that? Chancellery? Is that how you pronounce it?
Chancellery. We don't have that in
Chancellery.
America.
Ah, okay. Well, they passed a directive in December saying that all government agencies need to assess their digital sovereignty. Basically, they're saying we are too dependent on American tech companies. Can we run this software ourselves if we need to? In my ears, this sounds reasonable. This sounds even boring at this point because everybody keeps saying this. We need digital sovereignty. And one consultant was like, no, I have something against this. Here's a formal complaint with the Swiss parliament. And he called it an overreach, an unlawful act. He was basically saying, like, how dare you say you want to be like not dependent on American tech companies? And the whole punchline is that he signed it as a concerned private citizen. And he did not mention that he is a part of the Chamber of Commerce. Like he's basically a lobbyist. And this whole intervention came out, and it appears to really have, well, backfired like completely. Rather than getting the digital sovereignty debate buried, he has made it more prominent than ever. Oh, this US lobbyist tried to stop Switzerland from becoming slightly less dependent on US tech. Well, he got caught. He made it worse. And it's amazing. He has basically made Switzerland now way more motivated than before to become sovereign. And also, what I thought was interesting is that he coined the term digital sovereignty a propaganda term. He called it a propaganda term. For me, that's really funny because here you are, a lobbyist for American tech companies, calling this a propaganda term. Yeah.
So this is actually wild. I mean, in the US, we have all these hypothetical scenarios because we have the Israel lobby have so much power. And, people who are critical of that say, imagine any foreign country lobbying in the US for certain policies. Imagine if there was like the Chinese American PAC, and they would lobby for the interests of China within the United States. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. Israel's an ally, so it's different. But it's still a foreign country lobbying within the US for certain goals. So to hear that the US is doing this to other countries is fascinating, especially because of who Howard Lutnick, our Secretary of Commerce, is in the United States. He's someone that comes from Cantor Fitzgerald, a financial firm. And he's supposed to not have any ties to it while in office, but it's been found that that's not entirely true, right? He has a family member that's like taken his place in running it, and it's been kind of a scandal. And so the cooperation of multinational corporations and official US government leaders is a huge problem. And the liberal hegemony, it's like neoliberal hegemony now that we have in the world, has meant that although liberals view state sovereignty as incredibly important, it's not as important as securing free enterprise and global free markets. And they will see states not worthy of sovereignty and deserving of intervention if they get in the way of free commerce and free trade, which is always the extraction of resources and exploitation of labor by American companies. And that's exactly what we see here. And this is something, the US has done for a really long time. But to see like the official government, like leaders, be the ones sponsoring it openly is something that they used to hide. They used to have shame over it. It used to be seen as corruption, and they make excuses for it and say anyone against this is against, freedom, right? And they label it terrorism or, like you said, propaganda. So that is a crazy story.
Do you think he's going to get fired for it?
I hope they do. Wait, God. Like, are you saying the U.S. Secretary of Commerce getting fired?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Not enough people understand it or upset about it. The main thing that happened was the position that Cantor Fitzgerald supposedly was taking on tariffs. So companies would get these huge tariff bills because of Trump's policies, and they would pay them. And then Cantor Fitzgerald was like, well, the Supreme Court could overturn the tariff policy and have to pay these back. So what if we purchase them and we pay like, I don't know, 70%, and we'll buy your tariff bill, taking the position that maybe it will get paid and we'll make 30% on it or something. Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, did an inquiry and said, if you're taking this position, we would like to know. This is a regulatory concern. And Cantor Fitzgerald came back and said, no, we actually thought about it, but we decided not to do that. Don't know how true that is, but that was like the biggest controversy. But because there was no real evidence, and I don't know what the result of the congressional inquiry was yet, maybe they'll find something there and then he will get fired. But so far, it seems like they didn't end up taking that position on the tariffs. I think it would be insider trading if they did find that. But I hope this Swiss guy ends up getting fired for what he's doing. He shouldn't be lobbying for the U.S. government.
As a private citizen, concerned private citizen. That's what I'm going to tell my friends now, and I don't like what I see when they still date their ex.
I'm a concerned private citizen. That's
all
good.
right.
I like that.
These were the 3 news I brought with me. But we have a deep dive topic. We are going to talk about this whole Anthropic, OpenAI, Pentagon deal. And I don't know how much you know already, so I'm going to just quickly summarize what has happened, because on the surface, I feel like it looks like corporate drama between like Anthropic and OpenAI. They have been tweeting back and forth. um, but I feel like if you zoom out, it's actually, and I'm not even kidding, it's probably a story about who runs the world right now. And I feel like the answer is increasingly it's not governments. So let's do a timeline first. So July 2025, Anthropic, the AI company behind Claude, they signed a $200 million contract with the US Pentagon. The contract includes two specific restrictions. Claude cannot be used for mass domestic surveillance of American citizens, and it cannot be used to power fully autonomous weapons. The Pentagon agrees, everyone shakes hands, fine. Then, January 2026, the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issues a new AI strategy memo. Every single DoD AI contract must now accept what he calls, quote, any lawful use language, meaning no company gets to put limits on how the military uses their AI. Anthropic refused to remove either restriction, arguing that today's AI models simply aren't reliable enough for autonomous weapons. And that, allowing them in that role, would endanger American soldiers and not protect them. And he's like this patriotic guy that really wants to protect these American citizens. Well, the Pentagon's response was Trump posts on Truth Social. He's ordering every federal agency to immediately stop using Anthropic. Hegseth designates the company a supply chain risk to national security, a label that has historically only ever been applied to foreign adversaries, like, for example, Chinese military companies. And now Anthropic is the first American company to ever receive it. And then within hours of Anthropic being blacklisted, OpenAI swoops in and announces its own Pentagon deal. Sam Altman later admitted that the timing looked, and I quote here, opportunistic and sloppy. That's one word for it. Anthropic's annualized revenue jumped from $14 to $19 billion in the weeks following the fallout. Claude hit number one on the App Store because everybody keeps saying they're the more ethical app to use. Turns out being banned by Trump is actually great for business in this case. And also one more detail, the US military continued using Claude during active strikes on Iran, even after the ban was announced. The government simultaneously declared Anthropic a national security threat and kept using its AI in a live war. Okay, now we are up to speed, and I feel like I want to ask you, are there even like good guys here? Because we are now in the midst of like people saying, oh my God, switch to Anthropic. Have you heard the news? And they're quoting these news and they're saying, oh, what a moral stance Anthropic has taken. And I want to ask you, like, are there any good guys here?
To me, it feels like there are no good guys. And that this is a classic fascist strategy of if you give people a set of options, they'll be so obsessed with choosing that they won't even realize you've given them a horrible set of options. And that's what's going on here. I think you put it well in one of the things that I saw you posted, which is it's making something that is a political or moral decision a simple consumer one. That's how they want you to see it. But realistically, I think Anthropic is only upset about the bad PR they got when it was reported out that they were used in the capture of Maduro in the coup in Venezuela by the United States. I think they were under the assumption that the Department of Defense was not going to tell anyone who was behind that, which AI was behind that. And they're upset that their friends in the Department of War didn't keep their mouths shut. And I think they're also concerned that legally they will be held responsible because this administration would love to scapegoat them and say that actually the Department of Defense is not responsible for this decision legally, actually Anthropic is. And so if they can't trust the weapons, I don't think that's as much of a concern as they don't want to be bankrupt by a lawsuit and fail because of all of the negative PR associated with this. I think if they had an NDA where the Department of Defense couldn't say where it was used, and if they had no legal responsibility, they would absolutely go through with it. And so Why are we rewarding them for simply making a strategic economic decision for the longevity of their business? It's not a moral decision.
And also, he is not framing it a moral decision. Like Dario Amodei himself, the CEO of Anthropic, he's not saying he's not doing this because of moral objections. He's saying it because basically his AI cannot do it that well yet. So it's only a question of time. And also, I feel like my prediction is that they're gonna find a way to work together in the end, because Anthropic is, I think what we have seen here is that Anthropic has played such a huge role in this attack on Iran that, it's apparent that they're part of this whole machine or this whole machinery. And it's going to be it's going to take such a long time to, I don't know, to make sure Anthropic or Claude is not used anywhere anymore in the next coming months. And I don't think that's so much work. I don't think they're going to go through with that type of like solution. I think they're going to get to a place where, I don't know, Peter Thiel, who has been part of every funding round for Anthropic up until now, is going to call up JD Vance, and JD Vance is going to talk to Trump or Pete Hegseth or who, I don't know, who's in charge right here, and be like, yeah, like, let's find a way to work together and find a way that we can all be happy. Because the way it also looks to me is that this is all like, it's theater for us. We're watching this, and just like you said, we have a feeling of like, oh yeah, there are multiple apps we could choose from to be a bit more moral or to at least have a say in what's going on. But we actually have no say at all. And it's just a battle between them and like how much power a CEO has of a tech company versus how much power the government has. That's like just between them. We are completely out of the picture. All of the posts that I've seen saying boycott ChatGPT are making this look like we have a say in this and that they can actually lose market share in a significant manner. That's not possible. But I still support people wanting to switch to other AI companies, but not Anthropic, but to other, maybe a bit more sovereign ones. Because I
I'm
do
curious,
believe, there are some solutions we could switch to.
I'm curious, since you come from the inside world, do you see everyone using ChatGPT with no subscription as like you're doing a service to, OpenAI because you're essentially testing their AI for them?
Yes, I do see it as like it goes in, how do you say? It goes in two ways. One, we provide data, of course, by uploading our pictures and like doing these silly, I don't know, what is it, Ghibli pictures of us, of our family. They are constantly getting data from us. That's how it works. And at the end of the day, that data helps them really make us see through, make us as a user transparent. And that is then used for like selling ad space, right? That's what ChatGPT is right now considering doing. I'm not sure how they want to do it or how they want to go about it yet. I haven't run into any ads. Maybe you have, maybe other people have, or they haven't started. But I'm curious to see how they're going to solve it, because it looks like they're trying to, I don't know, pitch products in the most intimate moments, probably. But as I said, it goes two ways. So I feel like people not paying anything for AI, I think also makes it look like we don't have, like, this technology comes at no cost. And then people start relying more and more on these AI services, even though they cost actually like a lot. And it's only possible because these VCs have made it possible. They are paying the price, basically. So I think we are all seeing what we have seen with Uber happening, for example, where the prices in the beginning were like pretty affordable and now they have like jumped up. I think it's going to happen with AI too soon, because they need to make money soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the AI bubble bursting is something I'm worried a lot about, because the economy in the United States is entirely dependent on AI. a lot of the GDP growth we've seen is the direct result of data center construction and AI growth. We've seen jobs numbers on the decline. And the data centers that are being built, sure, they might employ a few hundred people in the time of construction, but once it's built, they take around 100 employees to function for the maintenance. And so they're not a sustainable job source, but they're the only new job source. So any job growth we've seen, does that mean it's temporary? And that's not looking good for the future of the US economy at all. And we're starting to see investors pull out of a lot of these big tech companies. They see the writing on the wall. And what's happening is I saw an ad yesterday for VCX, which was advertised in a very emotionally charged way. It started off with like images of families in the 50s in America, us going to the moon, and it said the US stock market allowed the average American to have a slice of the pie of America's greatest businesses. But recently, companies are staying private longer, and you have to be a high dollar investor to get a share of our cutting edge companies, right? And they're advertising a fund of venture capital that's invested in some of our biggest tech companies. And it reminds me of like Robinhood, which was this investment app that was more accessible than maybe like Vanguard or something.
Mm-hmm.
And Robinhood was found to be, lagging on the transactions, holding the money a little bit, having their own sort of investors use the money like a bank. So it was a huge money-making opportunity for them. They were not executing the transactions in the way they made it seem to the user. That happens a lot when they start advertising Wall Street investment to regular people. This feels like that again. It feels like they're prolonging the AI bubble from bursting by trying to get regular people to put money into it. It doesn't feel like they're doing what they're saying, which is democratizing venture capital investment. It feels really like they're just trying to take advantage of regular people who don't really fully understand the market conditions. But they went public this past week, and it seems like they're spending a ton of money on marketing and ad placement. And so at first I didn't want to necessarily talk about this because I don't want to bring attention to it and have more people use it. But on the other hand, it seems like they're going to try and get on people's screens anyway. And so I think it's worthwhile for us to talk about it, to be critical of it. Some of the top companies they're investing in it's 21% of the fund is Anthropic. 18% is Databricks, 10% is OpenAI, 5% is SpaceX. So this isn't like a strategically diversified portfolio. It's a lot of the same major companies to a huge degree. So instead of investing, $100 in this fund, like you could just take $20 and put it in Anthropic. It feels very intentional. And I have no idea what the founders of Fundrise relationship is with these tech companies. And I also know that this same group has done something similar for real estate investment to try to get regular people to get a slice of the private real asset investment in real estate in the United States. It just smells bad and wrong.
It smells horrible. I'm from the finance industry, and I know how much people rely on like ads as like their main source of knowledge. So I feel like when they see ads saying, yeah, this is trustworthy, go, I don't know, come here and spend your money here, spend your pension here with us. It's all going well. Look, I feel like people would be drawn to do that actually. And this trend that you just described is, I feel like it's also happening here in Europe, because we have like our most popular apps at the moment. They have offered people now to also invest in private equity, and they're framing it as in like, oh yeah, Up until now, it was all behind closed doors, but now you are also able to like be part of these private equity deals. And what people don't know is that private equity itself is not a huge like breadwinner. Most of these people are going to lose money on these deals because you would need to know a lot about these companies beforehand. You don't have as much knowledge. It's not as transparent. So yeah, I mean, when this bubble bursts, I think there are going to be a lot of people drowning in the chaos of it all. And I think so many companies or so many of these AI companies such as ChatGPT or I believe even Anthropic, they do believe that they're going to get bailed out by the government. Do you actually believe that that's going to happen? Do you have any opinion on that?
I don't know. I mean, okay, so we saw, of course, the like $35 trillion bailout globally after the financial crisis. Since then, I think, especially in America, we don't have a taste for the government bailing companies out with public dollars during COVID. You know, I guess this was after the peak COVID, right? It was this SVB, Silicon Valley Bank's collapse. A lot of us were wondering, like, is Silicon Valley going to get bailed out with public dollars? And I think we're grateful that what we've seen is these banks get absorbed by larger banks, and that might feel bad. It might feel like consolidation. But to me, I would rather see that than the US government just bail out the bank and let it continue to exist. Because I think in an actual market economy, if this bank fails because it's not operating properly, and a big reason it wasn't is because some of the Dodd-Frank regulations after the financial crisis were overturned by MAGA Republicans in our Congress. And so Silicon Valley was just under the threshold of stress testing their investments because that threshold was raised, and it shouldn't have been. And so that really makes our financial system that much more insecure. And they knew what they were doing. They were probably paid, to reverse that regulation. But people were really paying attention to it. People that didn't pay attention to the financial world were wondering what the US government was going to do. And I don't think we would see that happen here. If it does, I think it would be a great display of the power that, tech billionaires, oligarchs, syndicates of capital have over this administration.
I feel like I want to go back to the topic for a second because you just mentioned syndicates of capital. And I feel like we have crossed a type of like threshold we haven't fully spelled out yet to everyone. It's that these tech companies, they aren't just powerful, they are beginning to even like rival states and state power. Think about what Anthropic actually did here. A private company run by an unelected CEO, like not democratically elected, not by us. They negotiated the ethical terms of AI warfare directly with one of the most powerful militaries on earth. They drew the red lines. And the government pushed back. They sued, like this is like a spat. Over 30 employees from rival companies, Google, DeepMind, OpenAI, they all filed legal briefs in support, warning that blacklisting Anthropic threatens the entire American AI industry. So it's like they're really fighting. And I do see it as like I feel like they have a lot of leverage, a lot of power, and they are trying to set the terms of the whole deal of how violent everything is going to get. We're talking about autonomous weapons here, how people are essentially going to get killed if it still needs consent by their machines, if they negotiate the rules of warfare basically. And I also feel like they have foreign policy, intelligence operations, global infrastructure, currencies, and now increasingly we see tech companies have these type of capabilities. And the one thing they don't have is that the one thing that I feel like has defined a state being a state is like a monopoly on violence. And I would love to hear your take on this. With states, they have the exclusive right to use force, right? And I feel like these companies, these tech companies, they're trying to infiltrate that by embedding their AI into the military decision making so deeply that the military cannot function without them, which we have seen. And Anthropic has realized that, they cannot just disappear mid-conflict, and that's actually not possible. So they need to find a way to work around it. Or at least for these next months, there's going to be like an open dispute. So that's infrastructure they're actually providing. That's not just the technology, that's real infrastructure. That's leverage over the state's capacity for violence itself. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think you've got it. I think that's better than I could even say it. Thanks for reading Syndicates of Capital. I think that's exactly what's going on here. It's who really has power over the US military if it is increasingly individuals who run these tech companies and decide what the AI's priorities are and how it makes decisions, right? It's not the US military at that point. It is the AI. And I don't think it's a new phenomenon, but it looks different than it has in the past. And I think it's been a slow process to get to this point. I think about the Iraq War, which a lot of people are talking about right now. And maybe even the first coup in Iran is a great example. Wars fought for oil. Mm-hmm. Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized what used to be the Anglo-Iranian oil company, British Petroleum, BP. And it's this principle of if the resources are within this state's borders, they should belong to Iran, right? Isn't that state sovereignty? And through a democratic election, they chose a leader who was going to do that. And they celebrated when he nationalized the oil. This was something the people wanted. And so what did the US do? Well, sure, Iran has state sovereignty, unless you're interfering with global free trade and markets. And so they couped Mossadegh and established, the Shah as the leader, which is a big reason why we saw democracy fail in Iran. It was at the hands of the United States. And people in Iran remember this. This was just 1953. And so the United States never learns this history. Our people don't know this history. But the outcome of this was that Western-based multinational corporations could still profit off of the oil that was in Iran. People in the United States had jobs in the oil industry. They got cheaper gas because of this. They had stock in oil industries. Today, it doesn't look like that as much. The capital and the profits largely go to a handful of people that I would call syndicates of capital. People that own these AI companies and are invested in them. They're outsourcing military decision-making to themselves in a more direct way. And sometimes I wonder if Anthropic's saying, hey, actually, we don't fully trust our model to not hallucinate and make these decisions. So we're going to need some staff embedded within the Department of Defense to make sure it's still functioning and it's not going to be making mistakes. And I could see them having personnel placed within the Department of Defense as contractors. That happens all the time. And so we've watched these groups of very wealthy individuals outsource military strategy, decision-making, how the weapons navigate, pretty much every element of the legitimate use of force is under some control of syndicates of capital, these very wealthy, very powerful private citizens. And if you were to ask someone, does Sam Altman have more power in the world than a congressperson like Jim Himes? I think most Americans would say, who's Jim Himes? Like, of course, official state leaders have less power than these guys right now. And it's time we incorporate that into our worldview.
I would love to talk about the human in the loop thing here firstly. Yeah, and for everybody not knowing what it means having the human in the loop, or how much of a reassurance that can be, I want to talk about that just for a quick second with an example I have brought. Israel's military used an AI targeting system called Lavender in Gaza, for example. They had human operators that were technically in the loop, as they say, but these people were spending roughly 20 seconds per targeting decision mostly checking whether the person flagged was male. And the system had a known error rate of around 10%, meaning roughly 1 in 10 targets had no verified connection to Hamas. Let that sink in. Even with the human in the loop, there was an error rate of 10%. So we are talking about deaths that lethal strikes that actually didn't even mean to happen, or shouldn't have happened, people dying. And now we have this administration saying we don't even want the human in the loop. We just want fully autonomous weapons doing this type of job. So 20-second, that's how long a human was, in the loop before a lethal strike decision was validated. And I believe those battle-tested software, that's what we're talking about here in Anthropic, in this deal as well. So just to put it into perspective, what that means.
Okay. Yeah, I think the reality that 20 seconds is not a long period of time, first of all. But because I'm sure a lot of the people overseeing AI and how it's used, these generals, they don't have a deep knowledge of how AI models work. And that means they kind of see it as a computer, as math, as a calculator, as more correct than maybe if they were to make a strategy or run an assessment themselves. And the fact that they might not know that that's not even close to reality and how these models have been designed and how they work, and that they're actually trained on human information and decision making, and that makes them imperfect. It's concerning that they think they're using this tool that is smarter than a human, right? And they trust it and they want to rely on it like we rely on our other tools, like a thermometer to tell us the right temperature or something. And it's outsourcing the emotional labor of assessing the morality in a time of war. And a lot of people talk about international law that I saw someone tweeted more like the Geneva Suggestions. And I think that's funny. I also heard a congressional candidate recently get in sort of a kerfuffle over her foreign policy stances. And she spoke about global democracy. And her positions weren't like extreme, but believing that there's global democracy is a delusion that I find really concerning because we've never had global governance. We have lived in a model of an anarchy of states since 1648. When the Peace of Westphalia was signed after the First World War, and we said we're going to recognize state sovereignty. But there's never been a method of democratic decision-making among states. There's just been multilateral agreements, so states working together and forming contracts with one another. The United Nations facilitates multilateralism. There's no enforcement of UN agreements. There's a famous Dave Chappelle sketch where it's George Bush going into the war in Iraq. And he says, oh, what's the UN going to do? UN what army? And there truly is no global force that can make states comply with international law, or individuals for that matter. They only exist as real if states enforce them. And so how would international law in any meaningful way respond to autonomous weapons? It can't even respond to the actual decisions of real military officials and state leaders. So we're putting ourselves in a situation where there is no check or balance against this kind of warfare.
Yeah, I'm really asking the question, is there even a framework that would even attempt that at this point to actually figure out who would be accountable when AI makes a lethal mistake like that? So here's where I land with this whole dispute. I think Anthropic refusing to allow fully autonomous weapons, or their software to be used with fully autonomous weapons. Yeah, sure, you could say that's correct, but I think we have seen in this discussion that that's only like the surface of this whole discussion. And actually, I think we need to talk about who has the power to even decide who uses what in what circumstances, and that we don't have any type of framework, any international law that is making sure we land on something that's pro-human, so to speak. I'm not sure what how to call this, because as you said, there is just nobody who could hold these people and companies accountable in any manner.
I feel like it seems like everything is so new and unprecedented, but it's not. There was an IBM manual in the 70s, and this quote keeps going viral. You've probably seen it, but it goes like this: a computer can never be held accountable. Therefore, a computer must never make a management decision. And so the idea that IBM has stronger ethics on this than the US military should concern us all. But I think that summarizes our predicament well, of the limitations of what military technology and military AI should be. But I'm curious what you all think about this, if you've put some thought into it and where you land on the issue. So let us know in the comments what you all think. Okay, Aya, what is your tech marry kill for this episode?
Well, we talked about those red lines Anthropic issued, and I think, yeah, those should stay. Marry them, but put them in law, of course. The accountability gap that will pop up, I think, kill it before it kills somebody else. And the idea that the human in the loop is a meaningful safeguard, I feel like that one's already dead. We just haven't announced the funeral yet.
I like it. Okay,
That's
so
my
my
humble
tech
opinion.
that's good. Okay, I have different ones.
Go ahead.
My fuck or my tech this episode is the app that they developed to detect where the AI glasses are. That is really, using the weapons of your enemies against them. My marry this episode is the people of Switzerland standing up to the US Department of Commerce and for digital sovereignty, which I am for as well. And then my kill is just any autonomous weapons, any military AI. We can do without it. I would like to kill the killing, please. That's my stance.
Yes, kill the killing. I love that.
Thanks for listening and hanging out with us and talking through the tech news, which can feel very overwhelming. And we want it to be digestible because not a lot of people really get this from the mainstream. It feels like kind of a mystery what's going on in the tech world, and it shouldn't be like that because these people are running the world and the military. So we hope this felt more digestible. And if you liked it, subscribe so you never miss one of our episodes. Thanks for watching. Love
Thanks
you.
for
Bye.
watching. Bye-bye.